Welcome back, fight fans. Back for another one. Excuse me already. It's UFC 287 we're going to be talking about first, of course. Great card. I mean, iconic main card. Just unbelievable, especially the main event. Wow. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about this week's card, which is UFC Kansas City. And am I looking at the right spot? It seems a little more tilted. I think it's usually more this way. Whatever. We're going to get started. UFC 287. We're going to get right into that right away. That opened with Sam Hughes, Jacqueline, Jacqueline Amorim. I mean, there was a reason why I didn't say to put this one in there, even though she was a minus 200 something favorite. And I was even actually thinking like, maybe I'll actually say to pick Sam Hughes on this one. I did end up going with Amorim on Tapology, but I did watch the tape and I was like, I don't know. And whenever you see that first round, whenever you see they never leave the first round, it's always dicey. It's always dicey because you don't know how they're going to be in the second and third round. And Sam Hughes is not somebody you really want to make a debut against if you're not really sure how you're going to be doing with a second and third round, because she does not stop. She is absolutely relentless. And that did end up being the problem for Amorim here. And we'll get right into that right away. We'll get right into that right away. Ladies getting right after it. Pretty heavy combos right away. They did, on the feet early, but Jiu-Jitsu ace Amorim. I mean, we know that's what she was going to be searching for the entire time. Started to grapple fairly quickly after that. She did get the takedown pretty easily, started to work. Hughes managed to get back up, though, but Hughes was then quickly taken down again, and she was in a way worse spot this time. Amorim on her back. Hughes did... I mean, insane. This happens to me every single time. Hughes did incredible to fend off the relentless sub attempts, but was moments away from getting finished multiple times by Amorim there. Amazingly, did get back to her feet at the end of the round and did make it through the round. And of course, that was not the only time we saw this exact thing on the night. We, of course, saw this later on the main card with Rosas and Christian Rodriguez. But, of course, we're still talking about this one. Second round. So, I mean, obviously, opening round, Amorim. Second round, this is where, obviously it does stray from what happened with Rosas because of the strategy. It's just, this strategy almost never works. Almost. I don't want to say it never works because we have seen it work before. But I mean, it really almost never works, where you see the jiu-jitsu person, they just keep pulling guard over and over, just looking for the other person to come down and play on the ground. If your opponent has even half a brain still working, they're not going to do that, because why would you? Clearly, you're winning on the feet. So why would you join a jujitsu master on the ground for absolutely no reason? It makes no sense. So, it's just a terrible strategy for the jujitsu person. Get up. I mean, at least pretend like you're going to be a danger on the feet. Get up, do something that, go for some takedowns here and there. At least run in, push them into the fence, do something. But I mean, just randomly pulling guard over and over again, not even really pretending that you're going to be, fighting on the feet. You're going to be losing. I'm sorry, you're going to lose. It's just going to happen. Unless, like I said, unless your opponent is a complete buffoon and goes down to play with you on the ground for no reason, it's just not going to happen. So like just awful strategy that we've seen over and over again, and that is exactly what Amarim did. She started to do that, and I mean just obviously lost in the last 2 rounds doing that kind of shit. I mean, the 3rd round was a little bit closer, you know. Hughes actually went for a takedown a couple of times in there, and she did end up playing on the ground a little bit. I mean, I don't that's just the dumbest thing you can do. I mean, sure, you've got confidence in yourself. You're clearly doing a good job ground and pound. You're on top. I mean, that's all fine, but it's like when you're trying to be as safe as possible, when you want to guarantee yourself a win, hey, clearly they don't want to be on the feet with you, so make them stand back up. It's just it's a no-brainer. I mean, seriously, like it does not take a genius to figure that out. So I cannot stand seeing fighters do that, just playing into the only game plan that their other person has. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But again, worked out for Sam Hughes. Obviously dominated the last 2 rounds, wasn't even close. 29-28 Hughes. Judges agreed, thankfully. And good win for Sam Hughes. And I mean, I don't know why people keep getting I don't know if people are just completely looking past her and just discounting all of her wins, but I mean, every single time she seems to be the underdog every single time. And I've picked her actually, I think 2 of those times. I didn't pick her this time, like I said, but I was so close to being like, I probably should pick Sam Hughes on this one. Clearly I should have. But yeah. I mean, I just don't know what people are missing on her. I really don't. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Just one of those people, I guess. There are some fighters out there where it's like nobody seems to give them any credit whatsoever. And Sam Hughes seems to be one of those. Second fight, Steve Garcia, Shailan Norden Becca. Gotta say, little surprised by this one. I mean, I knew there was going to be a finish, so that was actually my kind of pick going into it was like, maybe stay away from picking a winner. Just go with the under 2.5 on this one. And that's what I did here because it was like, yeah, I'm not really sure who's going to win. That being said, I did have a little bit of faith in Norden Becca, so I did end up picking him and put him in a couple of my parlays. I just thought, I just haven't been impressed too much by watching Garcia. He seems to get, just run in there. He gets hit every single time a lot, and then he ends up losing. And the only reason he didn't do that with Chase Hooper is because Hooper doesn't really have good striking at all. He actually probably has some of the worst striking I've ever seen. So it's like, that one was kind of like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That one made sense as to why Garcia won that one. This one though, I didn't really expect him to do that, especially into the second round and get just absolutely shredded by a lot of Norden Becca's stuff like I thought he was going to, and then came out of it. I didn't think he was going to be able to do that. Anyway, Norden Becca looking big, quick, powerful as always early, landing some pretty huge shots. Less than a minute in, Garcia was flattened on his back, and that's exactly what I was talking about. I was like, this guy runs in quick and always gets hit, except for against Chase Hooper, but always gets dropped like that, always gets hit a lot. And you can't do that against somebody like Shailan. Well, apparently you can, because he ended up getting the win. But and yeah, Shailan was looking for the ground and pound finish. Slowed down quite a bit from there. Maybe because Shailan was, he put a little bit too much in to try and get a finish. Who knows? Shailan never lost control though in the first round. Out grappled him the entire round. Garcia dropped him to his knees though with a hook at the end of the round, but was then taken down again. And I think it was a fairly clear round for Shailan because of that. I mean, yeah. Second round, though, Garcia came in hot with some combos, and then it was actually a body shot, and I think that's really what did it. Um, Two body shots in a row to the exact same spot. Couldn't do anything about it. Shailan drops, shelled up, could not move, and actually stayed on the canvas like that for a while. So, I mean, it was clearly, I mean, you don't normally see body TKOs like that. And this was actually the KO of the night for quite a while, of course, overshadowed by the main event eventually. But this is one that I did have as the KO of the night for quite a while because of the body shots. You just don't normally see that kind of thing. So, but yeah, like I said, I mean, I think Shailan was doing exactly what I thought he was going to be doing. It's just, you know what? Precision of the body shots like that, can't do anything about that. Incredible. Really pretty amazing TKO right there by Steve Garcia in the second round. But like I said, we cashed in the under. So there was that. Fight number 3, Ignacio Bahamondes, Trey Ogden. Fight started out much slower than the others, and I was actually a little surprised by that because Bahamondes in the past has not been that kind of guy. He's been the kind of guy that goes right in there for the action. Definitely a lot more patient this time. uh, Being the longer guy, seemed like Bahamondes was just doing better. I mean, he was landing a bit more, landing harder, especially with his kicks, doing really well. Pretty much dead even round, really. But I think just based on how he was looking, it seemed like a Bahamondes round. Second round, both of them came in a lot harder. Ogden doing much better this time. But Bahamondes still a step ahead, especially with the kicks. That's really what was doing it for him. Then as the round went on, he was missing a lot more, but Bahamondes still had a lot more activity. So probably won him the second round as well. Seemed to be 2 rounds to nothing for Bahamondes at that point, at least for me. Third round, Bahamondes again, the one walking forward, backing Ogden up, landing kicks. And at this point, he actually was just kind of running away with it. Ogden wasn't really landing a whole lot of anything, or much of anything, I should say, at that point. Dominant decision, really, for Bahamondes. And the judges agreed 30-27, 30-27, 29-28, which makes sense because, as I said, first round, pretty close. Second and third, not as close, not as close. So great win for Bahamondes, looking a lot more experienced and a lot more patient, which is very good and very interesting. That's for sure. That's definitely what you want to see from somebody that's younger. I mean, he's what, 20, I think he's 24, 25. Yeah, it's good to see. Good to see. Getting smarter. Because that, I think, was his problem in a couple of those fights. Fight number 4, Loopy Godinez, Canadian. Well, I mean, fights out of Canada. Amazing. Loopy Godinez, Cynthia Calvillo. Gotta say, a little bit surprised. I mean, the decision was a bit wonky, but what can you do? First round, Loopy. But I did say how close this was going to be. I'm pretty sure this was was it one of the featured ones I was talking about? Oh, no, it wasn't. It was the other women's fight that I was talking about last time. But this was definitely one of the closer ones in my mind, for sure. Which, again, is why I didn't put Godinez as one of those big parlay people, because, you just don't know. You just don't know, especially with this size difference. Calvillo coming down. Godinez didn't have the best performance last time. Don't want to throw those people in too many parlays, or any. Loopy looking much cleaner on the feet early. Calvillo struggling to land, even with the reach advantage, which was pretty impressive by Loopy. Calvillo getting stumbled a few different times. Calvillo landing here and there. Nothing really all that significant, though. Finally, she actually made a move, took Godinez down with 1.5 minutes left in the round. maybe swayed the judges a little bit, but never really did any damage. So I went with Loopy on that one. Um, yeah, but takedown like that, I could see how it could have swayed the judges. But for me, that was probably a Loopy round. Second, Loopy looking good on the feet, walking Calvillo down, looking great. She expected, she expected the takedown this time because it seemed like she was caught off guard in the first round by that takedown. Very much expected it this time and really just shut down the takedowns. Every time Calvillo threw a combo, Loopy would respond with a cleaner combo herself. She did start to slow down, though, allowing Calvillo to catch up a bit on the numbers. That would be one where I give 10-10. But I mean, I really could have seen the judges going either way on that. Um, I gave it to Loopy, though, because, like I said, it seemed like the first half of the round was Loopy for sure. Second half of the round, it was a bit of a toss up. So, early momentum gave it to Loopy. But like I said, that's one of those rounds 10-10, really could go either way. Should have been a draw if we're scoring things properly and in how they should be scored. Third round, Calvillo seemed to have some new confidence there, some extra energy in the final round, outpacing Loopy now. I mean, maybe that could just been Loopy slowing down a little bit. Tough to say. Godinez not throwing as much, but when she did land, it was significant. That's for sure. This continued for most of the round. Loopy couldn't get out the same numbers as before, while Calvillo still throwing. 30 seconds left. Loopy got a brief takedown, but wouldn't have swayed anything in my mind. So it seemed like a fairly clear Calvillo round there because of the output, as I mentioned. Godinez not necessarily doing anything crazy. Could have really gone either direction, as I said, 29-28. Because like I said, it seemed like the first and the third round seemed to make sense. Loopy first round, Calvillo third round, second round really could have gone either way. Scorecards 29-28. 29-28 in the opposite direction. So, tied right there. And then a 30-27 for Loopy Godinez. I got to say, I don't really see a 30-27. I just don't really see that. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure about a 30-27. Just because, I even said, maybe the first two rounds, but the third round, I don't know. Like I said, a brief takedown at the end, but I mean, that's not damage. Calvillo was more active before that. I don't know. A 30-27 seems a little bit weird, but yeah. But I don't really have a huge problem with the fact that it was a split decision, though. Because like I said, I mean, it really, if we're being real, it should have been scored 29-29. That's just how the rules are written. They should be scored that way. So could I argue with a split decision? I mean, when I thought it was a tie, no. So, I don't really have a problem with that. It was the 30-27 that was I don't know about that one. After that, but good to see Loopy Godinez get the win, though, of course. Training out of Canada. Actually, probably 45 minutes away from here. Amazing. Super cool. For Loopy Godinez. And it would have even been cooler. I mean, actually, I'm going to say this again later today. Would have actually made more sense if they would have had her on the card in Vancouver coming in 2 months from now. I mean, that would have made sense. And I'm going to say that about today with Tanner Boser. Tanner Boser is probably the most, maybe the most successful Canadian around there now. So it seems kind of weird to have his light heavyweight debut this week when he could be fighting a month and a half from now, probably definitely on the main card, opening up the main card somewhere on there. That would have made more sense, but hey, whatever. What can you do? Anyway, next fight, Joe Pyfer, Gerald Mearshart. Gotta say, this one was actually surprising to me. This one was very surprising. Pyfer definitely looking way bigger, and he did not look like that before. I gotta say, that was pretty clear, and he mentioned that himself. He got way bigger since his last fight, and it was noticeable. Walking forward, throwing huge shots. First big moment came when Pyfer landed an absolute bomb, stumbled GM3 back, and really after that, landed another huge combo, dropped GM3 to the ground. Huge ground and pound, and I mean scary ground and pound. You do not normally see ground and pound that is that heavy. I mean, it really was like oh shit, he's really throwing these until the ref called it. And I mean, again, really did not see that one coming. I mean, he is so much better than I thought he was going to be. I mean, you definitely cannot say, I mean, you got to say he's been improving. That's what I really mean to say from this is it's like he's just looked so much better than he ever has. I mean, he's clearly, and I mean, I would say actually every single fight, he is getting a lot better and it noticeably better, especially this one, because as much as I don't really think Mearshart is that great, considering what I keep seeing in his fights, you got to admit that his last fight against was it Jotko? No, I can't remember who that was. It might have been Jotko, where he just ran away with it and ended up getting a finish. I mean, it was like, who's this Mearshart? I haven't seen this one before. Not at all. Like he's just kind of hit and miss, but this one was like, oh, okay. Like Joe Pyfer really is actually the real deal. He is actually really, really good. And I didn't think I would be saying that. I really didn't. I just thought, okay, yeah, Mearshart's going to kind of control the action and win this fight. That's really how I thought this was going to happen. And I actually think that if Joe Pyfer would have fought Gerald Mearshart in his first fight, like in that last fight months ago, I actually think that is exactly what would have happened. But because Joe Pyfer is now so much bigger and so much more skilled, he really worked on everything. I got to say, he's the real deal. He definitely is the real deal. And he's only, I think, 25, maybe 26. I can't remember. I think it's 25, though. I mean, wow. For real. I could not have been more impressed by what I saw. Very, very impressive by Joe Pyfer. And I will be taking him very seriously in my picks now, for sure. Because, yeah, he's really getting just way better. Way, way better. Then we had the actual first pick, and I forgot to transfer my notes over to the laptop. I hate when I do that. I mean, now that I actually know how to do, now that I actually fixed my phone to so that it can airdrop to the laptop. Now, of course, I forget to do it. So it is still on my phone here, and I will be reading my notes from there for this one. So that was Luana Pinheiro, Michelle Watterson, Watterson Gomez, I should say, Karate Hottie. This one was another dicey decision, I gotta say. But yeah, first prelim that I talked about last time. Definitely excited for this one, and pretty impactful in that division too. The 115s, I believe. Yeah, yeah, they're 115, right? I think. I think so. Both of them looking good, clean early. Watterson seemed to be throwing, landing a bit more. Pinheiro landing a bit heavier. So it's that classic power versus, quantity versus quality. With a couple of big moments from big kicks, seemed like Watterson was actually a bit ahead, but near the end of the round, Pinheiro absolutely rocked her with a late combo, and in my mind, stole the round away. But now, when you look back on it, and when you look back on it and you're reading it, it's like, oh, I thought this was a bit of a weird decision. But when you actually read through it, knowing the decision at the end, it's kind of like, oh, I see why this was so close. Because again, first round, Watterson was definitely winning, but then got absolutely, wrecked with with a late combo there. So I thought Pinheiro won the first round because of that. But again, I guess you could have had Watterson because she won the rest of the round. Second round, both of them uh, looking good early. Watterson with a clean combo. Pinheiro landing huge calf kicks. So they're both getting some damage in there. As the round went on, Watterson starting to struggle with those kicks, then starting to come back a bit, landing another clean combo. But at this point, Pinheiro actually really started to slow down. And that was what I was worried about in this matchup. And it's why, again, I didn't put her in the parlays, because it's just like, yeah, I do think Pinheiro is better, because Watterson's just kind of, just slowing down a bit. I mean, she's a little bit older now. I'm not saying she looks bad, but it's just, you're not going to be as good as you were 4 or 5 years ago, That's just a simple fact. I love Watterson, but it's just a simple fact. That's what's going to happen after a while. But like I said, she definitely still has the cardio. Wasn't worried about that. So I figured Pinheiro was going to kind of struggle with the cardio in the third round. And I was worried it was going to start happening in the second. And that is actually what happened, is she started to slow down in the second. And it was a very close round, but I gave it to Watterson because of that slowing down. Watterson just seemed to be gaining the momentum in the fight. So for me, it was a tie at that point, 1-1. Third round, Watterson came in right away with some grappling, did well, but Pinheiro eventually gained control, started to land heavy in the clinch, and it was completely even really the rest of the round, except for a late, pretty quick takedown, though, from Watterson Gomez that may have solidified the round. I couldn't tell at all who won. So now that I'm saying it, I mean, it really wasn't a dicey decision much at all. I mean, it really could have gone either way. But I did have it. Yeah, I did have it for Watterson at this point. So I had it 29-28, Watterson Gomez. And the judges, well, I can't really say they disagreed, because one of them agreed with me. 29-28, 29-28 in the other direction, and then 29-28 for Pinheiro. Fair enough. Like I said, I actually can't really agree with that. I mean, I can't really can't really disagree with that at that point, because like I said, even I would actually even say, like I said, all 3 rounds were pretty up in the air. So, except for maybe the first. I actually kind of, looking back, probably because of all that damage at the end of the first, that was probably now I forget who got the damage at the end of the first. Pinheiro. So first round, probably Pinheiro. The other two, could have gone either way, which makes sense now, because she did end up winning the decision. Anyway, split decision, Luana Pinheiro, Michelle Watterson Gomez. Tough loss, though, for the Karate Hottie. That's the one takeaway from this is, yeah, I think she won, and she looked obviously still top 15 level, but the record is not going to show that. It's going to show a loss. That's a few losses now. Obviously they're not going to be, I don't think they're going to be cutting her anytime soon, but it definitely rattles your confidence. And then, what are they going to be giving you? Because Luana, I don't even know if Luana was she might have been, I think actually it was like 12-13 or something like that. I think that's what they were ranked. So, now she has to be fighting somebody that's not ranked. Then you're getting into, well, I mean, she basically is now kind of in the gatekeeper territory. Not that you want to say that too much, but, That's kind of what we're getting into now, where you got to beat people outside of the top 15. Tough to say, but that's where we find ourselves after a split decision. Then we had what ended up being actually the brawl of the night: Chris Curtis, Kelvin Gastelum. I had Curtis by decision going into this, and I don't know. I still don't really know entirely how I feel about this one. After that, we'll go through it though. We will obviously go through the whole thing. Gastelum ran in quick, looking to pressure Curtis hard. Curtis wasn't really throwing out a whole lot in the first round until he landed a very, very big combo. Gastelum definitely leading the pace, landing kicks, moving a lot. But as the round started to move on, Curtis was starting to figure out his timing, starting to throw out a lot more. But I mean, first round pretty clearly went to Gastelum. I don't really know how you could argue with that. Yeah, just way more output from Gastelum in the first round. And that, I mean, I wouldn't really say that's what sunk Chris Curtis in this one, but I mean, he did clearly give up the first round there. That's hard to come back from. Second round, Curtis came in looking way better, landing heavy combos, stumbling Gastelum back. Then Gastelum grabbed all the momentum. I said he dropped him because, of course, I typed this out as I'm watching it. But then it was revealed it was actually a really, really bad clash of heads that caused that. But of course, judges don't know that, as I didn't know that, of course, when it first happened, because if you were just watching it, you might not have noticed that, because it happens. That stuff like that happens so quick. Most people don't really see that right away. Like, they don't really necessarily see that, and it depends on the camera angles. And of course, judges don't have cameras. They're not watching it. They're watching it through the cage. So they don't have review, they don't have slow-mo replays, they don't have anything. They're just watching it. So they don't know. Of course, they think it's a knockdown. Curtis was able to get back up because, I mean, to be honest, it actually looked like he was about to get finished, and I was like, "Oh, shit." Which actually, in the long run, now that I'm thinking about it, probably would have been better for him, because it would have been a no contest like that Kevin Holland fight against Dawkins, where he was finished after a clash of heads. This would have actually been the exact same thing. So he probably actually should have just been finished there, and then he would have been fine. He would have gotten a no contest out of it. Would have sucked for us watching the fights, and it would have sucked for Kelvin Gastelum too, of course. But yeah, it would have been way better for Chris Curtis if he would have just taken the loss, and then it would have been ruled a no contest. Would have been way better. Anyway, Curtis really started to land some hard ones after that, though, especially to the body. Gastelum wasn't backing down. And you know what? I even wrote it down here. If it weren't for that clash of heads, it actually probably was a Chris Curtis round, because he won the rest of that round. It was just that. It was literally just, it looked like he got knocked down, which means that he probably, if it was a knockdown, he would have lost the round pretty clearly. So judges don't know that. It's a Gastelum round, and you kind of have to score it like that, because of, if you pretend you were a judge, you wouldn't have known that it was a clash of heads, so you would have scored it that way. So I had it 2-0 Gastelum, but like I said, if that clash of heads wouldn't happened, if you negate that out of it, it seemed like a pretty clear Chris Curtis round. But anyway, third round, Curtis comes in hard again. Obviously knows now, fuck, like, the judges didn't know that was a clash of heads. I'm screwed. So he's got to come in hard. Gastelum starting to land a bit better, but then Chris Curtis woke up again with another flurry, lit Gastelum up. Body shots from Curtis, amazing. I mean, he's really so good at that. A minute left, Curtis was letting it all go, landing huge shots. Gastelum firing back as well. Wild, wild fight. Very, very close. And seemed like seemed like a pretty clear Chris Curtis round in the final round, which seems like all the judges agreed with that except for one. I don't know really what he was watching, but whatever. Yeah. So figured it was going to be a 29-28, which, like I said, and I mean, Chris Curtis says it himself too. And I actually thought it before he said it. So, I mean, I'm not getting influenced by somebody that I like here. I actually was thinking that when I was watching it too. I was like, oh man, that's just really bad luck. Like, there's no other way to say it. I mean, he lost the second round because of a clash of heads, won the third round, lost the first round. So clearly it was a tie, comes down to the second round, lost because of the clash of heads because he was winning the rest of the round. So it's like, I totally agree with him. I really do think that he lost because of the clash of heads. Because if that weren't, I mean, we're getting into what ifs and all that kind of shit where it's like, okay, well, if he wouldn't have gotten the clash of heads knockdown, Gastelum wouldn't have been fighting like that. He would have done things differently. Chris Curtis also probably would have looked a lot better, obviously, because he wouldn't have been completely dazed from being knocked out from a clash of heads. It's like we don't know what would have happened. But, you know, in this vacuum of a fight, if we knock out that clash of heads, then yes, Chris Curtis would have won 29-28. That's it. But yeah, can you say though he would have won 100% if he wouldn't have gotten in the clash of heads? No, you can't really say that. You can never really say stuff like that. But it's definitely just a brutal result for Chris Curtis. There's nothing really else to say. But on the other side of it, I mean, you can't really argue with how good Kelvin Gastelum looked. I mean, definitely looked way better than he has in his last couple fights. And the break, I mean, what else can you say? I actually did end up giving him one of my most valuable fighter bonuses. I did have two, of course, one of them being, of course, Adesanya. I mean, you gotta give it to Izzy. And then I gave another one, like I said, to Kelvin Gastelum. Actually, Kelvin Gastelum got two. It was a 2-2 night. Yeah, for the fight of the night. So technically, Chris Curtis got it too. But yeah, just incredible. After that, kind of getting through all of that mentally, physically, it's impressive stuff. We talk about it all the time. I give bonuses out like that because of stuff like that all the time. And yeah, it just most people can't do that. And most people don't even understand how hard that is to do. So yeah, pretty incredible for Kelvin Gastelum. And I really hope that he can keep that up and maybe even keep getting better. I mean, we got to remember too, he's what, like 31, 32 or something like that. It's crazy. I mean, he's been around for so long, but he's so young. He really is. Anyway, speaking of young, start of the main card, Raul Rosas Jr. That, of course, was my pick. I thought he was going to get the finish because honestly, in the tape, didn't really look like Rodriguez was that great with grappling. Not that I thought like, oh, okay, he's terrible at grappling. It's just that he got taken down fairly easily in his last fight. And I don't know, didn't really seem to be that slick with the defense. And I mean, if you saw the first round, I think that was actually pretty accurate, except for the fact that he was just barely able to defend enough to stay alive. So yeah, first round, I mean, Rosas came in with the takedown, fairly easily shut down, but did start to get the clinch going along the fence. Strength difference seemed actually pretty clear, at least in the first round for Rosas. He definitely did seem to be stronger. So I mean, the narrative that he's not strong enough because he's 18 seems just absurd. I mean, he was clearly controlling him in the first round. Like we all saw that, right? Like, what are you talking about? Took him down for a while, but or took him a while, I should say, but Rosas did end up getting the takedown. Rodriguez doing, I mean, a sensational job of defending, clearly, but he was getting thrown all over the place. And that's why, I mean, the narrative that he is not strong enough to compete right now because he's 18 is ludicrous. I mean, what are you talking about? Like, he threw Rodriguez around, like physically lifted him off his feet multiple times, like throughout the first round there. And he took his back there too. Looked really bad. I mean, I actually still can't believe that Rodriguez actually made it out of that first round alive. I mean, it was crazy. Crazy. But of course, he did get out of it. And that is exactly where Rosas had the problem. Second round, Rosas came in heavy, but it was Christian that ended up on top. Rosas got back up, but then was clipped by a huge knee and an elbow. Then Rosas started to kind of go along the fence, but C-Rod then reversed him, started to land some ground and pound. And it just seemed like Rosas was kind of out of it at that point. I mean, he used all the energy in the first round, but then not only that, tried to start doing the same thing in the second round, but because C-Rod didn't really have to use a whole lot of strength in the first round, now he had a lot of strength and energy left in the second and third, and that's really what made the difference. um Yeah, that's really it. Second round, C-Rod clearly was winning there at that point. He ended up taking Rosas's back, lots of ground and pound, just kind of dominating Rosas on the ground at that point because I just don't think he had enough strength left. That's really all it was. Clear round for Rodriguez, tied it up 1-1. Although I will say, I mean, uh, maybe, I mean, it could have been a 10-8 in the first round. Nobody scored it that way, and I didn't even score it that way. But when you look back at it, I mean, Rodriguez literally did nothing. So it was kind of like that could have actually been a 10-8 round, which would have actually lent this to a draw, which is interesting. And I'm actually a little surprised that none of the judges did that at this point, but I get it. I mean, I didn't score it that way either. But yeah, third round, Rosas turned to his striking this time, knew that, okay, I'm having a hard time here with the grappling. Didn't get anything going with the striking, though, shot in for the takedown. I think he probably should have kept going with the striking, though. I think that was kind of the mistake at that point in the third round. It was kind of like, okay, second round, you tried the grappling, didn't work out. Third round, it's just going to be worse. So maybe you should start striking instead. Rodriguez shut that down, starting to walk Rosas down. Then it was Rodriguez who was just stealing all the momentum there, found himself on top of Rosas, wrecking him with ground and pound, took Rosas's back again. I mean, Rosas just couldn't get anything going at all in the third round. Clear win for C-Rod. Incredible performance. I mean, truly, like, you know, I mean, a lot of people are shitting all over Rosas. I don't know why. Like, I think they kind of also have to realize that Rodriguez is just really good too. Like, Rosas can beat a lot of people on this roster. He still can. He could have beaten a lot of people that day. I mean on Saturday, it's like he just happened to get matched up with a problem because Rodriguez is very, very, very good. And I didn't really recognize that in his first fight. I really didn't. I thought, okay, well, who's Weems? Also, wasn't really impressed by what he did. But in this one, it was like, oh, okay. I see. It seemed like an off fight in his first fight. Now that I'm looking back on it, now that we've seen what he actually did after that, kind of seems like he just had an off fight in his debut there. But yeah, looked really, really good here. Just to even stay alive in the first round, that really tells you everything because, like I said, there are a lot of people on the roster that would have definitely not been able to survive that first round. So, I mean, people are like, oh, he burned himself out in the first, blah, 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 blah. It's like, you do realize that most of the people on the roster in like right now, even, I don't think they would have actually survived that first round because the grappling and the submissions were insane. I mean, I couldn't believe that Rodriguez was getting out of a lot of the stuff that he was getting out of. So, not a lot of people in the division can do that. I mean, it's a pretty stacked division, but that's tough. That is tough to get out of. So, I mean, I have to, you got to give credit, for me at least. I don't know. I think you got to give credit to both guys because they're both really good. I don't think Rosas got exposed. Like, I don't think it's like, oh, we just we're blowing him out of proportion. Like, no, I still think he's pretty fucking good. He's just going against somebody that's just slightly more experienced than him right now. Like, I think they were actually very, very evenly matched. Clearly, I mean, they went the decision. So, you know, just not Rosas's night. A little more experience, a little better fight IQ, and he would have had a much better chance at that point. Anyway, so yeah, take it easy on him. Seriously. Next up, though, Kevin Holland, Santiago Ponzinibbio. I figured Kevin Holland would get a finish here. I mean, Ponzinibbio, not the greatest on the feet. Holland has a pretty significant reach advantage. Ponzinibbio gets hit a lot. I thought it was fairly clear Holland should be getting a finish for sure. Of course, we find out after that Holland still has problems with his hand, so he couldn't actually even really punch him properly with his right hand. So that makes sense as to why he did not get an earlier finish, but he still got the finish. So I'm glad about that. But yeah, that kind of sucks that he didn't get an earlier finish. I'm sure that's exactly what he wanted, was a much earlier one. But hey, still got it. Still got the knockout with one hand that wasn't working properly. So pretty insane that he did that. But yeah, Holland looking long and quick early, tagged Ponzinibbio from a distance. Ponzinibbio doing well with leg kicks, staying active, not really landing a whole lot though. Ponzinibbio trying to stay aggressive, walk forward. Holland was just kind of dodging most of it. I mean, pretty elusive Holland, I would say this time. Of course, I mean, Ponzinibbio is not Wonder Boy. There's not really a whole lot of people that are as quick, elusive, and skilled as Wonder Boy. So, completely different ball game here. 10 seconds left in the round, though. Holland probably stole the round for sure. Ponzinibbio grabbed the leg of Holland. Holland, wild back fist, just like, man, take that. On one leg, Ponzinibbio dropped to the canvas, which looked ridiculous. It was like, oh my God, this is. And of course, every time Holland does something like that, it makes the other person look like an idiot. Another 10 seconds, and really, it could have been over. So Ponzinibbio probably got a little bit lucky there. I mean, I thought it was a fairly clear round for Holland for that. After that, I mean, I don't really know how you could argue with that. Second round, pretty slow start to the round. Not really a whole lot from either side. Action started to heat up after a while. Still pretty even. Then once again, last minute of the round, Holland started to land heavy. Stumbled Ponzinibbio back. Probably won the second round. So it seemed like a 2-0 lead for Holland. Third round, again, pretty close to start. Holland landing some pretty significant kicks. Then Holland landed an absolute nuke, dropped Ponzinibbio face first on the canvas. A couple more shots and the ref called it. Ponzinibbio woke up, complained about the stoppage a little bit. I gotta say, I complain a lot about early stoppages because, I think there are a lot of early stoppages, but I gotta say, this was not one of them. I don't really know. I think really Ponzinibbio was the only person thinking that was an early stoppage because it was a bit ridiculous. I mean, I even wrote down here, and you could see it in the replay. He literally bounced his head off the canvas. Like, that's not an early stoppage. If you bounced your head off the canvas because you fell like face first and bam, knocked your head on the canvas, I think you lost. I think you're out. I think that's probably a knockout. So yeah, definitely not an early stoppage. Clear win for Holland. Looked amazing. I mean, what can you say? And like I said, he really was working with one and a half hands. Like, that's pretty impressive. And what's crazy is he's actually asking for a fight next month. I think it's next month. Yeah, he said May, the middle of May. He's asking for a fight, and it's like, bro, your hand is still not healed. What are you talking about? You even said it's not going to be healed by then. Why would you do that? It just seems like a silly idea. I think he should stay away for at least a few months just so it heals up. But hey, whatever. I mean, what are you going to do? I forget who he. Oh yeah, he called out Chiesa now. I mean, he's probably right. He will still probably win even with the one fucked up hand. But I mean, why would you take that chance? It just seems kind of silly to do that. But that's his style. It's why we love him. So can't argue with that. If you're gonna do it, do it. I'll still watch. I'll still pick him, to be honest. So yeah, but you're gonna make it a little bit closer, that's for sure. Maybe it'll lower the odds in our favor. Who knows? Then we had a shock for some people, not a shock for me. Well, actually, I was shocked that it was a quick finish like this. Rob Font, Adrian Yanez. I picked Rob Font because, to be honest, haven't really been overly impressed with Yanez. I think he's good, but do I think he's good enough to compete in even really the top 10 at bantamweight? I'm not really sure. I wasn't sure before this, and I'm definitely not sure now. Um, yeah, especially against somebody like this kind of style where it's like he's just a better striker, and we saw that. We saw that right away. I mean, it ended pretty quick. But yeah, Font looked good. Crisp combos, bit of waiting. Yanez started to land a couple of slick combos, clean combos himself, clean shots himself. But couple flurries from both sides, both guys getting hit a little bit. Font was already busted up a bit. I was a little worried there for a second, which was weird because it was like Font clearly looks like he's landing way more and doing better, but he's the one that's busted up right now. So I was a little bit like, oh fuck. A couple more shots, Yanez was on his back, and then it was just all over from there. Follow-up shots, ground and pound, ref called it. That was it. Great win for Font. Cashed in on the underdog. And incredible win, really. Like I said, I thought he was just going to win a pretty clear decision. I didn't really think he was going to get a finish like that. So yeah, pretty impressive. Very, very impressive win for Rob Font. And then the rest of the notes are on my phone, apparently, because they are not on here. Great. But yeah, very, very impressive win for Rob Font, and made me look like the genius that I am picking him. Okay, so co-main event. Gilbert Burns, Jorge Masvidal. I mean, huge favorite in Burns. Obviously, I went in that direction. I didn't really see how Masvidal could win this unless Burns makes some horrible mistakes. But yeah, I mean, I said that pretty openly last time. I don't really think this is going to be completely all that close. Like, yeah, takedown defense for Masvidal, pretty solid. So I don't think this is going to be like a finish or anything. But I even said it was like, this should be a fairly dominant decision, though, because I don't really know where Masvidal has a massive edge. Anyway, first round. Slow start from both guys, just feeling each other out. Masvidal made the first big move on his feet, landing a slick combo. Burns shot down for a sneaky takedown. Shut down immediately, though, and that's what we were saying about the takedown defense. Couple more quick flurries to close the round. Seemed like a possible Masvidal round, to be fair. I actually maybe. That being said, Burns did close with a takedown, 5 seconds left. Did land a couple of decent shots in the round. Takedown may have swayed it for some of the judges. I wasn't sure. But I thought still Burns won the first round though. But yeah, first round was kind of could have technically gone either way. And we did see that on the cards. So, I'm not crazy for possibly giving the first round that way. Second round, Burns came in hot this time, dropped Masvidal on his back briefly, then grabbed a huge slam of a takedown. And from there, it was really just Burns holding him down, controlling him. No damage or sub attempts, really. Eventually, Masvidal was able to get back up, but was pinned along the cage. Obvious round for Burns. I mean, there's no question about that. Third round, another pretty slow start. Masvidal being a bit more active, I would say. And then Masvidal got clipped with a heavy shot, got stumbled back. Then Burns just really started to land hard, wobble Masvidal along the fence, got a takedown after that too, and really just put the win completely out of reach for Masvidal at that point, I would have said. Yeah. So seemed like a pretty clear 30-27 or 29-28. And that's exactly what the judges saw. Two 30-27s and a 29-28 thrown in the mix as well. And like I said, that was pretty fair. I didn't have a problem with that at all. Made sense. And then, of course, retirement from Jorge Masvidal. Not really surprised. I'm a little bit surprised that he was able to recognize that himself. I mean, he doesn't necessarily portray himself as the most cautious, smart guy, but I gotta say, the way that he's been able to recognize that, hey, I cannot compete in the top 5 anymore. The way that he could recognize that, you gotta, you know, that takes a lot. And I mean, so many other people have said that after too. I mean, it's a really, really hard thing to do, not even just in MMA, but in any sport, but especially MMA. It is very hard to recognize that, hey, I just don't have it the same level as I used to. That being said, I mean, I do think that there are still a lot of fights out there that he could easily win, and there are huge money fights that he could do too. But he doesn't want to do it. Fair enough. Fair enough. Can't argue with that. I totally get it. And especially after 50 something fights, I mean, why bother? Why? I mean, could he make another probably $10 million doing a few more fights that are pretty big? Yeah. Yeah, probably. Probably pretty easily. But, you know, you're also just going to start kind of tarnishing your legacy a little bit by just losing over and over again. I mean, yes, of course he can still win against even a couple of the guys in the top 10, but people are just going to think what they think and be like, "Oh, blah, blah, he's a bum, just retire, blah blah blah." People are going to say that. So, best to avoid all that. He's going to keep making a lot of money either way. So why put yourself through that damage, especially with I found out he has 3 kids or something. I had no idea he had any kids. So to see that was really nice too. And it was like, oh, okay. Like this seems like a pretty clear end point. I mean, hopefully, he'll come back even in just a box or something somewhere, but we'll see. If he doesn't, that's okay. That's okay. He's still going to be around. We're still going to see him. He's still going to be Masvidal. So good guy. Good man. Good man. Yeah. Anyway, then we had the main event. And boy, did we have a main event. Israel Adesanya, as they say. And Alex Pereira. Wow. Oh, wow. Wow. What a finish. What a finish. first round, we'll get right into it. Starting the offense, as always. I mean, he's always going to be the more active guy, especially against a bigger guy like Pereira. That's just his style. He's always done that. He's done that in every single one of his fights against him, and it's why he wins most of the rounds. So yeah, get the numbers going. Not really a whole lot from either side though in the first round, but a tad more from Izzy. So seemed a pretty clear first round for him. Second round, lots of kicks. Started to let loose, and it was scary. Holy shit! The start of the second round, it was like, oh my god. And you don't really notice it. It's kind of like for I would say 90% of most of his fights, he's just like, oh, okay, well, he doesn't look that good. It's like, he looks good and he's doing some damage here and there, but he's not really doing anything crazy. But then just at the drop of the what a drop of a hat, what is that what they say? Just at the drop of the hat there. I mean, just flips that switch and it's like, "Oh shit." Like that's terrifying. And that is exactly what he did at the start of the round there. This was not the rope a dope sequence. It was earlier in the round where he landed some kicks and Pereira was just walking him down like man, bam, bam, bam. And when somebody like that lets loose, it's like, oh, holy shit. Especially, I mean, if you're cage side watching that happen, I mean, it must be unreal to watch like that. I mean, even on TV to see somebody that big let loose like that, it is scary. It is scary to watch. I mean, what an absolute I mean, I don't even know. I don't even have words to describe him. He is massive. So to see him do stuff like that, it is just insane to watch. But Izzy recovered nicely from there, though. Started to land a bit. Then Pereira, of course, started to land some more kicks, some combos. Seemed to be like Pereira was winning that round. And then Pereira seemed to see blood in the water, light him up along the fence. And then Izzy slips out of the way. Bam! Clocked him bad. Landed a second massive shot. Dropped Alex to the ground. Landed a couple of shots for just to put the nail in the coffin. And that was it. And by the way, I keep seeing these people saying like, "Oh, he wasn't rope-a-doping him. He was actually hurt." Blah blah blah. What the fuck? Like, I just don't like. Even as it was happening, I knew what was. I even wrote it down. I was like, Pereira thought that he was gonna be. That's all I saw happening. It was like I didn't actually even see Izzy get hit with anything crazy. So I was kind of like, oh, okay. Like he's just going along the fence. Okay. Pereira thinks that he has landed quite a bit. So he thinks that, okay, I'm just going to go for the finish. That's what I saw, which is exactly what happened. Pereira thought that he was going to be getting a finish. Izzy knew you're not getting I'm fine here. What are you talking about? And then he slips all the shots, doesn't really get hit clean. Look at the replay. He does not get hit clean by any of those. He did get hit, he still gets hit. I mean, we're not talking about me going in there and hitting Izzy along the fence. Like it's still Pereira. He's still getting hit, but they're not clean shots. And you could tell, like I said, it wasn't a surprise to me that then Izzy slips out of the way and it was shocking that he landed it that hard. That was the part that I was surprised by because I thought, oh, okay, Pereira's just going to, he got hit. He's going to back up and he's going to be like, oh, okay, I see what you just did there. That's what I thought was going to happen. Because like I said, I saw it. I saw like, oh, okay, he's literally just doing the same thing he was doing in the fifth round, except for it's actually working this time. Like he's not actually getting hit clean this time. He's slipping out of the way, landed one. Okay, I thought Pereira was going to go back. He doesn't go back. Instead, goes forward again, and that was the mistake. Gets hit a second time, falls down. We know what happens. That's it. So yeah, the narrative again, these people, I don't know what the fuck these people are talking about. Like, how could you possibly I don't know. There's so many things that people have been saying about this that it's just like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even like, I didn't even need to hear rope a dope, like blah, blah, all these people saying all that to know. Like, you just have to watch it and just think about it. And you can see, like, oh, okay, he is clearly, that is exactly what he's doing. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It just seemed pretty obvious when I was watching it, but I don't know. Maybe to the, I guess, the more casual fan, they didn't see that. I don't know, but I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, regardless, incredible, incredible knockout. I mean, the confidence to actually do that, besides the fact that I knew that he was doing it, it's still crazy to do that in a title fight against somebody that's beaten you 3 times. But again, it kind of makes sense because it's like you've already lost 3 times. Again, 2 different sports, whatever, but you get it. You got to try something new. That's what he did. He tried something new. That's all we wanted him to do. Didn't have to grapple. By the way, I actually just noticed this. Nobody even commented on the fact that he didn't do any grappling at all after every single person, including myself, thought he was going to be grappling more. And he even leaked it in his interview where he seemingly looking back on it, purposely let loose that he was going to be grappling a lot more, probably then making Pereira think that he really is going to be grappling more. And again, we all thought he was going to do it. He even kind of seemed to let it slip by accident that he was going to be grappling more. Was it on purpose? Possibly. Possibly. He could have just been tricking everybody, including Pereira, knowing, hey, I'm gonna be I'm not gonna be grappling more. I'm just gonna be doing some real slick shit on the feet that you're not gonna be seeing coming, and I'm gonna go for the knockout this time. Who knows? Who knows? And I mean, again, people are gonna think, oh, he can't possibly think of these things ahead of time, blah blah blah. I don't think you know how smart people like this are. Like, that's why I can see it because I think of these things too. So it's like, and the celebration, yeah. Like I think of stuff like that all the time too. So I see it. I see Izzy definitely thinking of these things ahead of time. Do I think that he thought of the rope-a-dope sequence ahead of time? I'm sure he probably came to him at one point where it's like, oh, I'm sure, like, you know what? If I'm in that same situation again, if I'm in a similar situation, and he did say it himself, my legs were compromised a little bit, so I did what I did. So clearly at that point, it was something that he probably did think about at one point where it's like, he did this to me for real in the 5th round of the last fight where it's like I was, you know, compromised, let's say. Um let's pretend to do that another time because he's going to think I'm in trouble again. It's not that crazy. Not that crazy to think that somebody like that thought of that. I mean, it's crazy that he actually did do it. That's crazy. But to think of something like that, that's not really all that insane when you're of that level. And people need to really give him more credit because he is way smarter than people give him credit for. Anyway, that was it for the pay-per-view, and what a pay-per-view it was. It really was. Oh, by the way, for the next contender, I actually tend to agree with what seems to be the narrative now. I actually don't mind giving Duplessis. Well, I don't know. I don't know. Actually, I might have to reel that one back in. I was actually going to say I think I actually do agree that Duplessis might be the right choice, but I might have to reel that one back in because I do agree that he kind of hasn't really beaten anybody except for Brunson. But of course, I also agree with Brunson's side of it where it's like he hasn't really been able to breathe properly and he's still been winning. So it's kind of like, what can he do on a full camp with, like a full camp? So let's say 3 months from now, plus the fact that he can actually breathe normally now, and his style of grappling, like, just his aggressive, just relentless style, it really could be a tough one. I don't think people are giving DDP enough credit. So, yeah, I don't know. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it because I understand, like, because again, I understand, like, because again, I've actually had problems breathing too. I understand the difference too. I mean, not even to that extent. Like, I've had, like, even, like, a 20% drop. Maybe even actually, I've probably had even, like, a 50% drop. I had some pretty fucked up times where I could barely breathe. And trust me when I say it is the fact that DDP is doing that kind of shit when he can barely breathe, probably had worse breathing than I did. I mean, I know how bad it affected me, and, trust me, I couldn't even do any, like, shadow boxing or anything. I could barely walk because of my breathing. Like, it was like, well, I mean, it wasn't just because of the breathing too, but it was like, you know, so I get it. I mean, if that's true, that he was, I think he's saying, they were saying it's about 20% oxygen he was getting, 20% his capacity. What would 100% do? Holy shit, I don't know. I mean, he would be an unbelievable athlete at that point at 100% or even 90%. So, I see it. I think it would be great. They also definitely, I mean, Izzy is pissed for sure. DDP, he's not pissed. He's just like, he's just kind of taunting him at this point. I don't think I think he's fine with him. DDP is a nice guy. So I don't think he has a problem with Izzy at all. Izzy has a problem though. Izzy very much has a problem with DDP. So I don't know. I'd like to see it. The animosity's there, the story's there. He's the only one. He's the highest ranked one that Izzy hasn't fought. He's got his breathing back. He's got a tough style to deal with. Personally, I think that actually is a great way to go with it. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I would like it. It would also make sense if it was in South Africa, but you know what? I actually agree with what DDP was saying. Do it wherever, the first one. And if DDP actually does win, or if it's like, okay, we'll give him a rematch because it was really close or something like that, whatever. Then you do it in Africa the second time, next year after, or like he DDP loses, beats somebody else that's huge. Maybe he gets a shot against Whitaker or something, wins that, whatever. You know, there are ways that you could get this fight to happen in Africa and not have it happen this year. Just do it on the second fight. Assuming, of course, that DDP does well enough in his first fight with Izzy, and assuming he wins one or two after that. Yeah. But I could see it happening not in Africa, and I think it would be incredible. Incredible. So yeah, that's what I want to see. But anyway, if that's not what we see, that's fine. That's fine. I still think it should be Chimaev, but we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that at all. We are seeing Chimaev and fucking Paulo Costa. Holy shit. I mean, the trash talk that's already happening from Costa is next level. I love it. I love when somebody can actually trash talk on that level, because that is the kind of shit that I would be doing and I will be doing when I eventually get the audience and people start to hate on me for whatever reason. There are a lot of reasons to hate on me, and I'm sure there will be more. But like, it's that Chael Sonnen level, the Paulo Costa, it's just like, it's that level of ridiculousness. And Chimaev can do it as well. He's not as good as Paulo Costa, let's be honest, with the trash talk, but he can do it too. And I mean, the back and forth, especially when we get to the press conferences, oh my God, is it going to be absolutely incredible? Cannot fucking wait for that. I mean, that's got to be the fight of the year. That has got to be, gotta be the most highly anticipated matchup of the year, other than probably McGregor and Chandler. I don't really know how you could get a crazier matchup than Paulo Costa and Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, wow. Wow. That honestly could really sell a pay-per-view itself, but they're just doing it in the co-main before Islam and the winner of oh yeah, that was the other thing. It's supposed to be Islam versus the winner of Dariush and Oliveira, which by the way is another that's a great matchup. It really is. That is a great way to go with it. It really is. I really like what they did with that. Yeah. So I love the way they're going with that whole division. And then of course, like I said, the co-main, Chimaev, Chimaev and Costa in the co-main. Then you got Islam and either Dariush or Oliveira. What a card that's going to be. I mean, holy shit. That has got to be, except for if we get something, I mean, we're going to have something crazy, I'm sure, for fight week in July, but we might be getting John Jones. That still seems to be what the prevailing idea is John Jones fight week or international fight week. That would be incredible. But I mean, come on. Islam, Dariush Oliveira, Chimaev Costa. Wow. What a card that is. Anyway, enough about that. We're running behind. Let's skip ahead here. Well, we'll go with the bonuses, of course. KO bonus had to be Adesanya. I mean, obviously. The rope-a-dope KO. Unbelievable. Brawl of the night. Chris Curtis, Kelvin Gastelum. Again, no question. By the way, no sub bonus. There were no submissions in the entire night. Almost had one with Rosas. Almost had one actually even with Amarim a little bit too, but did not have any submissions. So instead, well, I mean, I was going to give out 2 most valuable fighter bonuses anyway, because I had to give recognition to Kelvin Gastelum. So he got one of the MVF bonuses. Adesanya got the other one. I think that was great. Great card. Nothing else to say about it. And now we will, of course, transition over to this week UFC Kansas City. Holloway, Allen. Really good looking card, too. Just a lot of striking matchups on this card. I mean, you gotta love the pure striker matchups. And there are actually a few on this card that are looking unbelievable in terms of the striking. So we will take a short break and we will come right back over to talk about UFC Kansas City. I will be back right after this.
Allow me to introduce High Stick Vodka, a new way to celebrate victory. Gather around the glass with an award-winning, ultra-premium Canadian-made vodka. You probably won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka has a smooth, hard-hitting taste, or that it's developed in the birthplace of hockey. You won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka is a tribute to the game of hockey, or when I tell you it's distilled 4 times using Canada's purest mountain spring water to provide an authentic, remarkable flavor. But maybe you will listen when I say it comes in a f***ing hockey stick. Showcase your passion for hockey with our limited edition hand-blown hockey stick bottle. Whether you're celebrating
And we're back. UFC Kansas City. It's gonna be a good one. Like I said, lots of very entertaining matchups. And even actually, well, I mean, this first one, I should say, is not between 2 strikers, but it's still a pretty exciting one because it's Clay, Guida, Rafa Garcia. I mean, pretty exciting. Anytime Clay Guida's in the octagon, it is something you want to see. And I've been going with Clay Guida recently because he has looked like he should be the favorite in his last few fights. So I have been picking him, and I've been cashing in. I cashed in, I think, 2 out of the 3 of those, because one of the ones, it was kinda like he actually was winning, but I don't know, it was kind of a weird one. He lost the decision, and it was just kinda completely garbage, but anyway, he's been doing really well, and he is still very much competing at that high level. But I gotta say, this is not one of those matchups that I'm gonna be picking him, I'm sad to say. I will have to be going with Garcia. I mean, Garcia, he's over 10 years younger, and I mean, again, Clay Guida, it doesn't really matter a whole lot with Clay Guida because he seems to just defy age in general. I mean, it is unbelievable to watch somebody like that. I can only hope to have even even half of that level of cardio at over 40 years old. I mean, it really is insane to watch, but it's just not a good matchup. It's just not a good style matchup for Guida in this case. Garcia is also a grappler. He's also decent on the feet. It just seems like Garcia is just slightly more well-rounded, slightly younger, you know? So, I mean, I'm not counting out Guida completely. I'm not saying, Garcia lock. Like, I'm not saying that, but I do think he is a fairly clear choice, and I will probably put him in, probably one of the parlays, Garcia. But yeah, Garcia minus 250. I'm not sure. Well, maybe. Okay. I was going to say, I don't know if he really deserves to be that one sided, but minus 250. Okay. Fair enough. Clay Guida plus 200. Yeah. Over under is over 2.5 at minus 220. Yeah. I mean, they're both pretty much only in decisions. So I think that would be the only part of it that I'm like, okay, I feel like that should be what happens for sure, is a decision, minus 220. So that's the way I'm going with it. That was an easier pick. Garcia is the easier pick. The over is for sure the easier pick. So that was a pretty clear one. Second fight, Pedro Munoz, Chris Gutierrez. I think this is another fairly clear pick. I mean, they're both mostly strikers. They both do that kind of style of fighting, just pure striking. Munoz tries to throw in some grappling and stuff here and there, but I don't think he's going to be all that successful with that against Gutierrez, which means that it probably is largely going to be that stand-up fight. And, we've kind of just been seeing Munoz struggle with that exact kind of matchup. I think I think it was Dominic Cruz he lost to. I can't remember. Did I write it down? Yeah, a 1-4 record in his last 5. Lost to Sterling. I mean, fair enough. Frankie Edgar. Yikes. I mean, but that's again more of a striking matchup. Aldo striking, Cruz striking. So you see what I mean? 3 of those guys are just strikers, and they're high activity kind of strikers. And Gutierrez is exactly the same. He's longer, he kicks a lot, he's a striker. Just a bad matchup for Munoz. I still think Munoz is pretty good, but it's just not a good matchup for him. Minus 213 Gutierrez. Yeah, locking that in all day. I've got him for sure in the parlays. Love Gutierrez in this. I'm definitely picking him for sure. This is the one I'm most confident actually about on the, yeah, probably out of all the ones I'm picking, this is probably one I'm most confident about. Oh yeah, over again, minus 220. Oh, I said the wrong number last time. Minus 220 for Garcia and Guida over. But yeah, I'm still going in that direction. Minus 225 is for Gutierrez and Munoz for the over 2.5. And again, I think that's pretty fair. Munoz has never been finished. Gutierrez, in some decisions, does get a lot of finishes, and he could get a finish here, don't get me wrong, but I think it's more likely going to be a decision. It makes a lot of sense. Again, they're both Munoz never been finished. Gutierrez in some decisions. So Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. I'm going with the over. Again, fairly easy pick. Then it starts to get a little more complex here. I still think this is an easy pick, but I could see how it could go sideways pretty fucking quickly. Because we're talking about the light heavyweights, newly minted light heavyweight, Tanner Boser, Canada, and Iwan Kutelaba. I mean, I think the pretty clear pick is Tanner Boser. I don't really know why Kutelaba would be the favorite. I mean, what's his record recently? I actually didn't write it down, but he's been finished a lot in his last like 5 fights or so. A lot. So, he's going against somebody who is just fighting against heavyweights. He wasn't really finished. I don't even know if he did he did get finished. That's right. I think he got finished by Cyril Gane. Makes sense. But I mean, he wasn't really getting finished at heavyweight. So why would Kutelaba be finishing Boser? Like it just doesn't really add up. I don't really see how people think Kutelaba is going to win this. I mean, Boser has power at heavyweight. Like he's gotten knockouts at heavyweight. He hasn't been knocked out really much at heavyweight. So, and he's going against somebody who is finished multiple times at light heavyweight. Like the guy gets hit a lot. So I just don't really see why Kutelaba would be favored in this one. I think Boser is the clear choice. I don't know. I mean, like I said, maybe something crazy happens. I mean, Kutelaba is a lunatic. He could definitely land something pretty big. But like I said, Boser doesn't get finished at heavyweight. So why would he get finished by Kutelaba? I just don't really see it. And like I said, Boser is getting finishes at heavyweight. So why would he not be able to finish Kutelaba when Kutelaba runs in like a maniac? So I don't know. I think the pick is pretty clear. And I mean, he's the underdog. So we're going that way anyway. Plus 108, Tanner Boser. When it's that close, go for the underdog. We've talked about that before. But not only that, you're talking about somebody who gets finishes in the heaviest division going against somebody who regularly gets knocked out at light heavyweight. It's a no-brainer. This is an obvious pick from a betting perspective, especially. Tanner Boser plus 108, obviously. Over under is at 1.5 rounds. And I mean, as you can tell, that's exactly why it's set this way, because Kutelaba gets finished a lot. And he also finishes people quite a bit at light heavyweight. So I could very much easily see this being the under. I would actually be going with the under on this one because I think whatever is going to happen, I think it actually does make sense. First round is probably where it's going to be. Or even at the start of the second. I really could see that. So I'm going plus money, plus 110 on under 1.5. I mean, we've seen a lot of first round finishes when Kutelaba's involved, whether that's him winning or losing. A lot of first rounders. So I think that's pretty reasonable. Plus 110, under 1.5. That's 3 bets in a row, actually. 3 fights in a row where I think all of the picks were pretty clear. This is actually where it starts to get really dicey. Dustin Jacoby, Azamat Murzakanov. Honestly, I did flip back and forth on this one because Jacoby, you've got a pretty, I wouldn't say sensational, but pretty elite kickboxer on the one side. Obviously did compete in Glory, did do pretty well in Glory. And Azamat is undefeated with knockout. I mean, and he's gotten knockouts in all of his UFC fights so far. So, and he's undefeated at, I think it's 12-0. So do you go with the guy that's kind of been struggling, not necessarily looking incredible, but he's got the kickboxing experience? Or do you go with the guy who's got a lot of knockouts, but hasn't really been fighting that well in his fights? Because make no mistake, Murzakanov was not winning any of his fights up until he got the knockout. So to me, I've got to go with Jacoby only because I don't think I mean, I'd be pretty surprised if Azamat was able to knock him out, and I I don't really see how he wins any of the 3 rounds really over Jacoby unless he gets a huge knockdown, of course. But are you going to do that in 2 out of the 3 rounds? I don't think so. I don't think so. I just think this is just a bad it's kind of just a bad style matchup for Azamat, really, because he thrives on people not being able to strike with him. He just lands one shot and ends up winning. That's how he's won all of his UFC fights so far. So I just don't think he can do that to Jacoby. I don't think he can do that. So because of that, I've got to go with Jacoby by decision. But like I said, it is a very tough call. Very tough call. Minus 163 for Jacoby, plus 133 for Murzakhanov. Again, I think that's actually a very well placed betting line because Jacoby does make the most sense, but Murzakhanov is undefeated and has gotten finishes in all of his UFC fights. How can you argue with those results? Unless, of course, you watch them. And like I said, he was losing all the fights up until that point. So I don't know. Like I said, that's a tough one. But Jacoby makes sense because I don't think he's going to get knocked out. And I definitely know he's not losing a decision. So I think Jacoby is the better choice. Minus 163. That's where we're going with it. Over under 2.5. I think the over is the pretty clear way to go because I definitely don't think Jacoby would get a finish. I would be actually well, maybe he could, but Murzakhanov has never lost. So for him to go from undefeated to getting knocked out, that doesn't really usually happen. So I would be a little surprised. And like I said, Murzakhanov, I just don't think is gonna knock out Jacoby. So I think the smarter way to go with this would be the over 2.5 minus 108. And it is basically even money. I mean, that is technically the underdog choice. I mean, minus 108 compared to minus 119, but they're both in the minus range. That's basically even money. So you could go either way. I've got to go with minus 108. And Jacoby is in a lot of decisions, like almost all decisions. So I think it's pretty fair to say that that is probably what's going to happen again. But who knows? I mean, you could see a knockout on either side. But yeah, better deal would be over. Then we've got another incredible fight. I mean, these striking matchups today, incredible. Edson Barboza, Billy Quarantillo. I mean, what an absolute banger. This is another one you really want to watch. And I got to say, this is actually another one where I'm kind of split on. I really am torn because you got Barboza on one side who, I mean, he's never stopped looking like an absolute killer. Like he is so dangerous in his striking. It is insane to watch. He is one of the most impressive strikers to watch to this day still because he's so clean, he's so quick, powerful. It's incredible to watch. But he is getting slightly older and he has found himself, not really on a great streak right now. He's 2-5. Yeah, 2-5 in his last 7. That is not good. I mean, listen, yeah, he's been fighting some pretty tough guys. So let's be honest. It's not like, he's losing to a bunch of losers. Like he lost to Giga, which I thought was a bit surprising. Lost to Mitchell. That one made sense because of the grappling. Lost to Ige in a split decision, which, if we're being honest, that definitely could have gone in his direction for sure. Beat Shane Burgos. I forget what his other win was, and those are the only ones I remember. Again, I'm just trying to think of this off the top of my head. I have the numbers, but I don't have the people on there. Yeah. So, Barboza is hit and miss now. You could really go either way on this. And on the other side, Billy Q has been doing a lot better, but he also hasn't really fought anybody that's this good. So I'm really, really going back and forth on this one, which means you normally go for the underdog in terms of betting strategy. But to be honest, I'm actually still going with Barboza either way, just because I think people kind of aren't taking him all that seriously anymore. Like, better in terms of the betting, I should say. That's why he's the underdog. But it's still Barboza. Like, he's still an incredible striker. And Billy Q doesn't really grapple all that much. He gets hit a lot. That seems to be how he wins his fights now, because he did this with Alex Hernandez too. He gets hit a lot and just kind of overwhelms the person at the end. Whereas with Barboza, I don't really know if you can do that. And I don't know if you can really let yourself get hit like that against Barboza. So I think in terms of the striking, I don't like this matchup for Billy Q very much. So I'm going with Barboza. And like I said, if it's that close, you should be betting on the underdog anyway. So I stand by that. Plus 145, Edson Barboza. That's where I'm going with it. Over under is at 2.5, and it's actually the exact same proportion as the last one. They're both minus money, but it's actually flipped. So now the minus 119 is the over, and the minus 108 is the under 2.5. They're both in a lot of decisions. I mean, they're both insanely durable. I see a decision in this minus 119 over 2.5. But they also both get a lot of finishes because they're both so dangerous and durable. So you really could see the under, which is why I see why it's split. But like I said, they're both almost inhumanely durable. So it's kind of like I'm kind of seeing over 2.5 minus 119. That's the way I'm going with it. And then we've got the main event. And I gotta say, I actually went back and forth on this one too. A lot of people are gonna hate on that because, the best is blessed. But I did have Allen there for a little bit. But I gotta say, I watched the tape and I flipped back. I went back to Holloway. It's nothing against Allen, really. I think he is definitely that guy, and he will be up there for probably the rest of his career. He will always be in that top 10 conversation. I just think that that's how good he is. I really do. He will be in that conversation for probably, like I said, probably even like at least the next 5 years, if not upwards, 6, 7, 8 years down the road. I still think we'll be talking about Arnold Allen because he is really that good. I mean, he's, what is it, 19-1? Like, that's a ridiculous record. But, oh, it is a 19-1 record. But I gotta say, the style does not match up well against Holloway. Holloway is just, he's a more elusive striker. He's better at picking you apart. He's just a really, really good striker. That's all it comes down to. And Allen is also a good striker, but he's not on the level of Holloway, which means that he's going to have to be using his grappling. He's a pretty big guy, so he'll probably get some control time in there against Holloway, but this is a 5-round fight. And that is what made the difference to me. If it was a 3-round fight, I might have gone with Allen. I really might have gone in that opposite direction, but this is a 5-round fight. Allen's a big guy. He's going to start slowing down. He has to use his grappling. He's definitely not going to be winning on the feet. So to me, that just means Holloway's got the advantage. Holloway's going to win over the 5 rounds. 3 rounds up, 3 or 4 rounds to 1, whatever, you know what I mean? Holloway should be able to win 3 or 4 of those rounds. I don't know if he's going to win all 5, but I think he'll comfortably win 3, maybe 4 of them, just based on his striking alone. And we can't forget too, Holloway actually is also good on the ground, which is why I just don't think Allen has enough to overcome this challenge. Do I think it's going to be close? Yes. I really do think Allen is going to make this close, but I think it's still going to be clear by the end of this that Holloway won, if not every round, 4 of the rounds, 3 of the rounds at the very least. And that we're still going to be saying Holloway's the second best guy in the division. Yeah, that's all I got to say. And I mean, really, what switched it for me is if you watch, I didn't even watch the Volkanovski fights because there's no point. I mean, Volkanovski's just so much better than anybody. It's like there's no point in even watching it. But what I did rewatch was the Yair fight, and it was like, oh, okay, like because Yair is just a crazy striker. Like he's just so. The only reason why Holloway got hit so much and why he had to turn to grappling is because Yair is just wildly unconventional and also powerful. So he's just a really dangerous guy on the feet. And Allen isn't that. He's not the guy that's doing flying knees all over the place, spinning elbows, spinning kicks, throwing literally anything and everything. He's not that kind of guy. He is more of that standard kind of striking style, and nobody really does that better. Well, nobody does that better than Volkanovski, but second place is Holloway for sure, and Allen just can't hold up to that, which means, like I said, he's got to turn to the grappling, and we saw that the grappling also very solid from Holloway to the point where he controlled Yair on the ground, and Yair we just saw is pretty good on the ground. So, I gotta go with Holloway. The best is blessed. Prelims now. There are 2 prelims that I want to talk about, and they're both amazing. I mean, this is a sleeper. I mean, it's not even a sleeper card. It's just outright a banger card. It's just a fire card. It's going to be amazing. Brandon Royval, Mateusz Nicolau. I am shocked that this is not on the main card for real. I would have thought even that Bozer Kutelaba would have been like main, featured prelim. Maybe even Murzakanov Jacoby. But yeah, to have Royval Nicolau, not even as the featured prelim, not even on the main card, none of that, just a random prelim, that is criminal. I mean, this is like, I think they're like number 3 and number 4, or 4 and 5, or something like that at flyweight. I mean, these guys are insanely good. And this is going to be an amazing fight. I actually cannot wait for this one. But yeah, like I said, I couldn't believe that this was not on the main card. So obviously I was going to talk about this. Brandon Royval, Mateusz Nicolau. That being said, I think there's a pretty obvious choice, and that's Mateusz Nicolau. He's just insanely good. He is so good. He beat Manel Kopp. Who else did he beat here? He beat Manel Kopp. He beat Tim Elliott, David Dvorak, Matt Schnell. Finished Matt Schnell easily. One of the other ones I think were decisions because he's pretty patient guy. But yeah, I mean, a win over Kopp. Holy shit. And that was his debut, by the way. I think that was his debut, or maybe his second fight. I mean, what an insane way to make your either debut or second fight. I mean, that's a crazy fight to have, considering how good we know Kopp is. So yeah, win over Kopp, win over Elliott, win over Dvorak, win over Schnell. And Royval kind of been having some problems. He has had some really good performances, but then he's also been kind of finished and kind of been thrown around and knocked out and all that. He gets into these firefights a little bit, and it doesn't work out well for him normally. So yeah. And if he does that this time, which I'm assuming he will, because Nicolau won't under any circumstances be aggressive like that, I think Royval will, and then he's going to get caught, and that's going to be the problem. So I am actually seeing the classic flyweight under pick now, Mateusz Nicolau by finish. That is what I'm seeing here. Oh, I didn't even, whatever. I mean, I didn't even say that. Oh man, I didn't even do the over under for Holloway. Fuck. I think it was pretty obvious I was going to say over though. Like I said, I think it's pretty clearly going to be a decision. Over 4.5 minus 140. I should have pointed that out though. I did forget to say that. But yeah. So over 4.5, Holloway decision. Yes. Not a whole lot of decisions I'm predicting on this card. Anyway, back to this one. Now that I've fixed my previous mistake there. Mateusz Nicolau by finish. I really do think he's going to get, well, it could be a decision, but I do think he's going to get a finish because Royval's just too aggressive and Nicolau finishes people like that. He is really, really powerful, really good. He is a finisher for sure when you give him the chance. So that is the way I'm seeing it. But could it be a decision? Yes, it could. But I'm assuming there's probably going to be more money on the finish here. Let's see. We will go to the odds. Oh, interesting. Okay. They're also favoring the under 2.5. What was I going to say? Yeah, pretty clear Nicolau choice, though. Nicolau minus 213. And by the way, either way, I still think Nicolau is going to win this. So it's not like I think, oh, he's got to get a finish to win this. Like, no, I think Nicolau is going to win this basically no matter what. Royval plus 171. Yeah. Minus 105 for over 2.5. Minus 123 for under 2.5. So like I said, they are favoring the flyweight under. And I got to agree. I think it is, but man. Smart better would probably go on the minus 105 though, because they're still flyweights. It's minus, it's still minus money, but it's better money, minus 105 compared to minus 123. Maybe a smart idea to go with the over, in fact, but I still think Nicolau is going to get a finish. So that's a tough one. That is a tough one. Tough call. That's better's choice on that one. Because it really depends on your generic betting strategy. Are you the kind of person that wants to be right? Or are you the kind of person that's playing the odds? Because the person playing the odds would definitely be playing the over right now. And the person who wants to be right would probably be picking the under 2.5. So it really depends on your betting strategy here. I would be picking the under, though. TJ Brown, Bill Algeo. That is the other one. That is the featured prelim. And it is another banger, it looks like. But again, I think it's a slightly easier one to pick. I did go back and forth on it a little bit, and then I watched the tape, and I was kind of way more sold on Bill Algeo on this one. He's just relentless. I mean, yeah, he's just relentless. Brown also relentless, but not necessarily as well-rounded. And I think that's kind of what's making the difference here. By the way, they're both 3-3. So I see why they made this matchup, and I see why it is a hard one to pick because they're both 3-3. But the difference for me is that Algeo's 3-3 is slightly more impressive because he's been fighting slightly tougher people. I mean, he made Herbert Burns look like an amateur. I mean, I've never seen anybody get beaten like I saw Herbert Burns get beat. He literally did not stand up. He was exhausted. That's exactly what it says on Tapology. TKO due to exhaustion or whatever like that. Yeah, I've never seen that. And Bill Algeo did that to him. And Herbert Burns, I mean, I've never really been too impressed by Herbert Burns, but still a fairly impressive person to do that to. And then he also beat Joanderson Brito, who is somebody that a lot of people have been pretty high on and that looked insanely good in the Contender Series, Joanderson Brito. So that's another pretty impressive win. So I think Algeo just has that slight bit of an edge. So I'm going with Algeo minus 200. I do see a decision because they both go to a lot of decisions as well. So minus 200 Bill Algeo, plus 160 Brown. So yeah, I'm going with Algio minus 200. Over under 2.5. They're hugely favoring the over minus 217. I am too. I think that's pretty clear too. Which I mean, and that really goes to what I was saying, because if you scroll through the card, most of these are favored, like highly, highly favored to go over 2.5. So I really do think we're going to be seeing a lot of decisions here, or we're going to be seeing a lot of under tickets getting cashed in, plus money under tickets. But yeah, that is it for that. We will quickly now go over the, what was I going to say? The parlays, of course. First fight, the ladies, no idea. I mean, that really could go either way. So staying away from that. I actually think Phillips looks okay, so I'm not doing that one either because he's the underdog. I think Denise Gomez is looking pretty good too, so that won't be in the parlay. Zellhuber did not look good his last fight either. So, I mean, these fights are actually really even. They're I mean, even on the odds, they're pretty dead even. So I'm staying away from all those. Robertson and Rodriguez. I actually favor Robertson in this one. So, but enough to be in a parlay like that, I don't know. Yeah, these are tough. This is a tough card. This is a tough card for parlays, I gotta say. Nicolau is probably where I would start with the parlay. Minus 213, looking really good. Royval hasn't really shown me that. So yeah, minus 213 Nicolau, that would be one. Bill Algio, a second one. Garcia, minus 250, that's a third one. Who else? Gutierrez, minus 213, yes. I might actually take Bill Algio out of that. Yeah, so we're looking Nicolau minus 213. Oh man, Garcia. Yeah, Garcia minus 250. Gutierrez for sure. But then all the other ones are so up in the air too, man. And then Holloway. I think I would be putting Holloway in there. So that's a nice 4-leg. But yeah, there's not. This is not one of the better cards to be doing parlays. Well, I mean, in terms of the odds, it's a fantastic card for that. But this is a tough one to get your parlays right. That's for sure. This is definitely a tougher one. But that being said, looks like a great card. We could definitely see a lot of underdogs cash this time. I mean, the odds on almost all the fights are very, very close. So this is clearly going to be one of those cards where it's tough to pick a winner. It is tough to pick the winners on this card. That's for sure. But anyway, that is it for me. Looks like a fantastic card. And the card after that, actually, I haven't really seen that card too much. The main event looks pretty solid. I mean, you got Pavlovich and Blades. Looks like that's a pretty solid main event. I think we're looking at another brutal knockout for Sergey Pavlovich, and Blades getting just slept like he did against Lewis. Going to be brutal, but I think that's actually exactly what we're going to be seeing. But we're going to be talking more about that next week. And I actually don't really know any of the other fights on that card. I haven't looked it up at all yet. So can't really speak to the rest of the card, but looking pretty good. Yeah, so that is next week. And we will see how we did this week. That is it for me. All the other sports on Area 51. All of my socials are down below. That's Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, all down there. That's where you can find all the BLÜ bonuses as well, of course. Yeah, that's it. That's it for me. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.